Hello, and welcome to Miss Hoyt's 5th grade class. Today, we're going to be discussing weather. The first weather phenomenon that we are going to be talking about is the rain. We're going to be discussing the water cycle and how rain occurs. Rain begins and ends here at the ocean. The fog that you're seeing in this image is evaporating off the ocean when heat and sun are combined and forming clouds that are going to travel away from the ocean. Once the evaporations have condensed in the clouds are then moved by the wind to several different areas. When the clouds become too full of the moisture that is gained from evaporation, they get thicker, fuller, and darker. A lot of times before it starts raining, we will see dark clouds in the distance. This is not unusual, as we know that rain is coming. Once the dark clouds have reached their maximum weight, rain begins to fall. When rain condenses on the earth, it will often run off into many different types of water transportation. One of these types is, of course, rivers, which take all of that moisture back to the ocean. Now for our study question. In which water cycle step does rain begin to fall? Our next weather phenomenon is wind. This map may look intimidating at first, but I promise by the end of today's lesson, you'll be able to read it like a real meteorologist. Wind travels much like a slide does. It goes from high pressure, meaning the top of the slide, to low pressure, like the bottom of the slide. So on this map, when you see large H's, that means high pressure, and L's mean low pressure. This map, we don't have so much congestion in our isobars, meaning the lines that are crossing the map. Each isobar line has a different pressure system, meaning lower numbers are low pressure and higher numbers are high pressure. On this map, we can see that the high pressure is in the north part of the United States and the low pressure is down by Florida. So we know that the wind in Florida is coming from the northwest. Based on this map, which way is the wind coming from in Nebraska? Our final weather phenomenon is something we in the Midwest are familiar with: tornadoes. Tornadoes can be pretty intimidating. We've seen the damage they do, and we know how scary they can be. But once we know the science behind it, tornadoes aren't so intimidating. Tornadoes are formed when a low-pressure system begins to spiral inside of a high-pressure system. Once the low pressure and the high pressure begin to spin at the proper temperature, the life cycle of a tornado begins. The first stage is the dust swirling stage. This is when the funnel cloud begins to form. Second is the organizing stage. This is when the tornado base will begin to expand as the air around it cools and the air inside of the tornado is heated up. We get to one of the next 3 stages based on the wind speed. The mature stage is when the tornado is vertical, meaning up and down, and very thick at the base. As soon as it begins to weaken, it enters the shrinking stage. This is when the thunderstorm that had created the tornado begins to move away, but the tornado base is still tilted to the earth. Finally, the tornado will dissipate in the 5th stage. All tornadoes are measured on the Fujita scale. The Fujita scale runs from F0s, which are generally not recorded, to F5s and even F6s. F5s are generally very, very rare and only account for about 1% of all tornadoes. However, that 1% of all tornadoes that are F4 or F5 account for 67% of tornado deaths. Now it's time to think about some of our stumper questions. Question 1. In what stage of the water cycle does it rain? Write your answer in the weather section of your science notebook now. Question 2. How do we know which way the wind will blow based on a weather map? Write your answer in the weather section of your science notebook now. Finally, what is the F scale? Write your answer in the weather section of your science notebook now. If you didn't get enough time to write down all of your answers, don't worry, we'll come back to it. For now, it's time to become meteorologists.